So, the track is nothing more than an early warning system. Animals also notice these tracks immediately. Animals instinctively avoid the tracks and thus do not get a relapse. A dog that someone has kicked remembers that and avoids that person. When we humans get kicked by the boss, though we keep running to the company every day. So we are on track every day and therefore chronically ill. A few examples. Now, no matter which special program, whether it's the intestine, the breast, the bone, the skin, the musculature, a conflict is thoroughly and generally resolved when it can no longer happen, or when I have been able to change my attitude towards it. So, for example, if I had trouble with the neighbor, on the organ level I now have cell plus, that is colon cancer. The conflict is not resolved until it can no longer happen. Let's assume that the lightning strikes the neighbor, bam. The issue is settled, my conflict is resolved. My neighbor is lying in the cemetery, this conflict certainly cannot happen again. Now the weight falls off my soul, and now I enter the healing phase. And at the end of the healing, I am healthy. Or else, I can change my attitude towards the neighbor. So let's assume the trouble was nothing more than a misunderstanding, and then we fix the problem over a few beers. Since then, we have been good friends. Then too, I'll go through the healing phase, after which the conflict is finally resolved. We'll be good friends ever since. As long as the conflict can happen again at any time, or as long as I can't laugh about it, the early warning system of the tracks will continue to operate. Once a month I'm in the active phase of the intestine program, for one day. I have constipation once a month, and in the healing I have diarrhea. I have constipation one day, and when it's gone, I have diarrhea one day. Or I see my neighbor every day. I have permanent diarrhea. If I see the neighbor every day for an hour, then I have a hanging healing. This is what's going on when I have a patient in front of me who only has healing phase symptoms of a special program. This is called colitis, for example, in the colon. But what if the neighbor moves in with me, and I see him and hear him around the clock? If he is permanent with me, then I have colon cancer. But beware, I don't have unlimited time on this. I don't eat, I don't sleep. The tumor gets bigger and bigger. I am on the sure path to intestinal obstruction, and I become emaciated. At some point my battery runs out, and I die of emaciation. It's always just the same trouble with the neighbor, the same program with the bowel. The different symptoms depend on how often I have to see my neighbor. Is there a track, or is there no track? And how often do I get on the track? Yes, we have such a thick list of diagnostic labels in our medical dictionary, in which 10,000 clinical pictures are listed alphabetically. Like a telephone book. That is the system of conventional medicine. We can reduce this gigantic medical dictionary to the diagnostic chart. You just need to have understood the basics. For example, hanging active. That is colon cancer. Hanging healing, that's colitis. If I have it occasionally, I have diarrhea occasionally. And the cause for each of them is the same. Trouble with the neighbor. We can now run the exact same example with all kinds of special programs. Let's say my mother-in-law has a plot of land that she doesn't want me to build a house on. I can't get my way against my mother-in-law. That affects my hip joint. A very intense conflict involves the bone. A less intense conflict concerns the cartilage. And where do I locate the mother-in-law? On the partner or the mother-child side? On the partner side, of course. She is not my mother, and she is not my child. She is my natural enemy, my mother-in-law. So, the mother-in-law affects the right hip in the right-handed person. In the case of a conflict shock that's highly acute, isolating, and catches on the wrong foot, it comes to the mother-in-law track. From now on, I will react allergically to my mother-in-law. If she comes to visit, I am sympathicatonic, and I have obsessive thinking on the level of the psyche. On the level of the brain, the Hamer focus is photographable as a target ring disc shape in my cerebral medulla. In the active phase, there is now a cell minus on the level of the organ. In cartilage, this is called necrosis. In bone, osteolysis. The cartilage disappears, or the bone decalcifies. It takes some time for the bone to rub against the bone. Or for the bone to break. Meanwhile, this tissue loss does not hurt. What hurts in bone is the periosteum. The periosteum hurts in the healing, not in the active phase. Now, let's say the solution happens. A month later lightning strikes my mother-in-law. I take the inheritance and the conflict is definitely solved. She cannot take the property away from me anymore. It is mine now. The mother-in-law lies in the cemetery, conflict solved. But now I'm in the healing phase. Especially with the bone. If I was active for 4 weeks of conflict, then when I'm healing, the pain comes for 14 days. And it takes another 14 days to go. The bone or cartilage is now repaired under swelling, until the crisis. A crisis in the cerebral medulla is not so special. One feels cold, that's about it. And then the swelling goes down, and the pain also goes down. At the end of healing, the cartilage or bone remains thicker than it was before, for a lifetime. That's the point of the luxury group of special programs. I have a unique episode. I have hip pain once in my life for 1 month. The issue is over and will not come back. So, now let's leave my mother-in-law alive. And she has this habit, always on the weekend she comes to visit. The weekend approaches, my mother-in-law approaches, full relapse. I am active with the same program on all 3 levels. I don't need the 3 criteria. It is enough for me to hear my mother-in-law. On Saturday, she's at my home. That doesn't hurt. Sunday, she's leaving. Monday and Tuesday, I have my hip pain. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I am fine. Saturday she comes again, now I have chronic hip pain with my mother-in-law. But take note. You always have to look for the conflict, where the symptoms started. The first symptoms I had, when I first came into healing. The preceding active phase did not hurt. So, I have to interpret the organ symptoms correctly. I need to know, is this a symptom of an active conflict? Or is this a healing phase symptom? So, I have hip pain occasionally. Always at the beginning of the week. Always for about 2 days, and then it's fine. Now, we have the mother-in-law living on the same street, just across the street, and she comes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. I can't get out of my hip pain at all. I just have hip pain throughout. It's called arthritis in cartilage. Let's take it to the extreme. Now we have the mother-in-law living in the same household. I can't get away from my mother-in-law at all, so to speak. And now the cartilage is necrotizing. This is called arthrosis, or wear and tear. This is where conventional medicine has a mechanistic worldview. The more often I operate the hinge, the more the hinge wears out. But what happens in reality when I work hard? Does the tissue become thinner or thicker? Thicker. There is no such thing as wear. If we excavate a skeleton, we can tell whether the individual was left or right-handed, based on which body side has stronger bones.
Germanische Heilkunde is considered the greatest discovery in the history of humanity, by those people who have understood its underlying principle. While classical medicine is based on more than 5,000 hypotheses, the Germanische Heilkunde can be considered as the only medicine, which is scientifically verifiable. With Germanische Heilkunde, for the first time in the history of humanity as we know it, there is a medicine with which any patient case can be reproduced in a strictly scientific manner. More than 30 different universities have already confirmed this in the past. Nevertheless, the discovery of Dr.Hamer has been suppressed and denigrated for over 30 years. Take your health into your own hands, and learn about Germanische Heilkunde, while you are still healthy. Helmut Pilhar, one of 3 lecturers, officially appointed by Dr. Hamer for Germanische Heilkunde, offers you an extensive and complete seminar collection for this purpose, which is now also to be translated into the English language. This knowledge will change your view of conventional medicine, forever. You can find a direct link to Helmut Pilhar's seminar videos in the description, below this video.